Hey, it's cold. We got to cheer about something, right? It was a cold December morning 4.5 years ago when we pulled our van full of college students into the town of Buffalo Center, Iowa. Population 905. Well, we went door to door for this guy named Barack Obama. And almost nobody in town had heard of him. And like you Iowans do, they asked some pretty tough questions. Would he stand up for the middle class? For people like them, not just for those at the very top. They asked us, would he get us out of this mess in Iraq? And they asked, did he have the guts to take on the insurance companies and reform health care? Well, conversations like this were taking place all over Iowa. And Iowans can be tough, but Iowans know the real deal when you see it. They took a measure of this man, they looked him in the eye, and you sent him on to be President of the United States. Thank you, Iowa, for that. Well, a lot has happened since then, and we still have a long, long way to go. But today we can go back to Buffalo Center and towns across America and say that in the toughest of times, this president delivered for the middle class. He walked into a Washington that was paralyzed. After the greatest economic catastrophe since the Great Depression, he took over. The auto industry was on the brink of collapse. He faced 2 wars. Bin Laden was at large and so much more. Barack Obama got to work. Our president delivered a Recovery Act. That's one of the reasons why we've had 29 straight months of private sector job growth. He put 400,000 teachers and education workers in our schools and thousands of police officers and firefighters on the streets of our cities. He ignored the skeptics like Mitt Romney and took bold action to save the auto industry. Romney was wrong, Obama was right. 1 million more people work in the auto industry today. Romney was wrong, Obama was right. He added years to Medicare's life by cutting waste and fraud and abuse while preserving services for seniors. He got us out of Iraq. He got Bin Laden. There are thousands more college students who can pay for school because our president got middlemen out of college loans. College graduates have 1 less bill to pay because they can stay in their parents' health care until they are 26. In Minneapolis, President Obama's leadership has helped us train 500 unemployed workers in clean energy jobs. And in Denver, hundreds more are working on the commuter lines. In Minneapolis, where we know the human tragedy of a bridge collapse, thank you, President Obama, for delivering the resources to rebuild the Camden Bridge and that bridge in Louisville and bridges and infrastructure across this country. Thank you, President Obama. Now, President Obama did all this and much, much more in spite of a Republican Party that said its #1 goal wasn't to solve any of these problems. They said their #1 goal was to stop Barack Obama. Think about this, ladies and gentlemen. In the middle of one of the greatest crises in American history, they sat on their hands and played politics. Look, I was raised a Republican, but I don't recognize a once proud party that's been hijacked by extremists who've driven it off the flat earth they pretend we're living on. They spent 8 years creating a colossal mess, and the last 4 doing almost nothing, except, of course, trying to blame it on President Obama. Hey, pyromaniacs shouldn't blame the firefighter. Okay, now Mitt Romney wants to go back to the bad old days that got us into this mess. He'd give up everything that creates opportunity for the middle class just to pay for those massive tax breaks for those who are already very, very comfortable. Romney's message is clear. In tough times, folks, you are on your own. Now, President Obama knows something different. He knows that America became great because in tough times, we come together. My pioneer relatives didn't cross the plains alone. They did it in a wagon train. And my immigrant relatives who settled the tiny town of New Prague, Minnesota, could succeed in their general store on Main Street because they needed the farmers and the farmers needed them. There were Native people who survived the incredibly harsh winters in Minnesota because they hunted together and they cooked together. And when it snows in Minnesota today, all over town, people look in on their elderly neighbor and shovel their walk. When my dad died and left my mom with 3 kids and a drugstore in the inner city, she picked up the pieces, and I owe everything to her. But my mom would be the first to tell you she didn't do it alone. We were surrounded by a community of support. In tough times, we come together. It's the most basic American value. It's the value that built the Midwest. President Obama learned that value from his Kansan family, and that's why he believes in an America where women get equal pay for equal work, where every person, in the words of that great Minneapolis Mayor Hubert Humphrey said, can walk out of the shadows and into the bright sunlight of equal rights, where you can serve the country you love without hiding who you love, and where in the country of the Statue of Liberty, every child can live the American dream. We come together in tough times. You know, back on that cold day in Buffalo Center, I was so incredibly proud to support a man named Barack Obama. I am so much more proud today. Back then, I hoped he would be a great leader, and today I know it. They tried to stop Barack Obama, but they couldn't because they underestimated President Obama, and more important, they underestimated you. President Obama has earned every gray hair on his head, fighting for the middle class and every American. Now it's time to stand up, America, and fight for this man as hard as he has fought for you. And if you do that, we've come a long way, but the best is yet to come. Let's go get him.